Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean and Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I'm a certified health coach, trainer, and author. And this podcast is for middle-aged men and women looking to optimize their health and get their bodies back to what it once was 10 to 15 years ago. I will give you simple, actionable items to get long-term sustainable results. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I hope you had a great weekend and happy Tuesday. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, hopefully you listened to my interview with speaker, podcast host, and author of Harder Than Life, Kelly Siegel. We discussed all about how he overcame his challenging childhood to take charge of his life. We went into his morning and evening routine, what he eats and lifts to stay fit at 47. And if you have seen this guy on Instagram or YouTube, he definitely is very fit. I will say he talks about working out every day. I don't necessarily think everyone has to do that, but either way, this is what he does. And yeah, we also got into the importance of mindfulness. We got into his book, Harder Than Life, and touched on much more. So if you haven't already, check out my interview with Kelly Siegel, episode 288. Now, on today's micro podcast, I wanted to get into the use of deliberate cold exposure, and I'll cite a few studies that have been done. There's quite a bit of literature out there, mainly on immersion, not too much on cold showers. But I will say, if you're someone that's never done cold exposure, I think it's good to start with showers and work from there, and then maybe get into like a tub, or if down the line, if you want to, like myself, we actually buy a cold plunge if it works and fits into your lifestyle. But I don't think it's the end all. Again, this is a tool. I think that, you should be focusing on quality foods, sleep, stress management, and things like that. But if you want to sort of, add another tool to the toolbox, I think cold exposure is a cool one. No pun intended. But a lot of people say, well, how cold do you want that cold exposure to be? And I think it depends on the individual. And like I said, what's your cold tolerance? What have you done in the past? But I don't think it needs to be crazy cold. I think anywhere from like 60 degrees to 45 degrees Fahrenheit is completely fine. And obviously, the colder the stimulus, the shorter amount of time that you would need to expose yourself to that cold. But either way, ice bath, cold shower. There is something called cryotherapy, which is pretty expensive and can be hard to access. So I wouldn't necessarily go that route, but either one would work, baths or cold showers. I want to touch on some of the benefits of them. And, these are things that I've found in just from my practice of doing it. I average probably 2 to 3 times per week. For the most part, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes more. And I will say that if you are doing resistance training, I would never do cold exposure after that resistance training. If you are doing some endurance training, then no problem at all. But I have done them pre-workout, and that'll get you going. Because one of the things that I will say is energy and focus definitely are on the up. And there's been some studies done showing 2.5 times more increase in dopamine. So deliberate cold exposure can significantly increase the release of epinephrine, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. Excuse me. So in the brain and body, and so these neurochemicals can make us feel alert, and essentially cold exposure, acute cold exposure, can increase those quite a bit. Now, also the fact what I find is building some resilience and grit as well, because essentially by forcing yourself to embrace the stress of cold exposure, it's sort of this meaningful self-directed challenge. And it just builds resilience is the best way. So it's great for training the mind in the sense that, you're deliberately putting yourself in this situation and you're focusing on your breath. It's almost a form of meditation. You have to almost like calm yourself in the midst of this environment, and you come out stronger from it. So that's a personal experience, but there's been obviously write-ups done on that regarding cold exposure as well. And then the fact that Dr. Susanna Soberg, who was on Huberman Lab podcast, and she touched on, there was a study done of showing 11 minutes per week of cold exposure divided up into 2 to 3 minute intervals, 2 to 3 minutes throughout the week. So you don't want to sit in something like cold bath for 11 minutes. If you do those in short spurts, like 1 to 3 minutes, I think that's a good sort of plan of attack. And that's what they've studied. And what they saw was this increase in the density of brown fat. Now, everybody has brown fat. Typically, you have more when you're a child, and you sort of lose it as you get older. And we also have what's called white fat. White fat is more the energy storage fat, the sort of the blubbery fat, if you want to say, that's typically around the waistline for males. But we do have this brown fat. It's a healthy fat, and it's like a thermogenic, and it's rich in mitochondria. And what brown fat does is it allows you to feel warm when you're in cold temperatures. And typically it's around your upper back, heart, liver, clavicle area. And so what they found from this study from Dr. Soberg was the fact that you sort of had this conversion of white fat, which is an energy storage fat, to this beige or brown fat, which is a higher metabolically active fat. And so what this can do is somewhat increase your metabolic rate, allowing you to feel more comfortable in the cold. So almost like this cold adaptation, and also triggering in further and more sustained increases in metabolism. Now, don't get me wrong. This is a tool. This is not something that you're like, oh, I'm just going to do cold exposure and suddenly just lose fat and be this, this specimen. But again, these are studies that have been done over time, and the fact that you can do a little cold exposure can help enrich your healthy fat, as opposed to the blubbery fat, which is the white fat, which you want to sort of obviously decrease if you can. It also showed, Dr. Soberg showed the fact that it can achieve bigger increases in your core resting metabolism, which I said already, improvements in blood lipid and even insulin management profiles, and also increase, like I said to you before, mental resilience. Obviously, you want to do this in a safe environment. And essentially, most of these studies, like I said, are done from immersion, not too much on showering, but I think cold showers is a good place to start. Also, too, it's a highly effective recovery tool. And there's been some meta-analysis done on the fact that it can help with recovery and inflammation from like high intensity exercise or endurance training. And so, like I said to you before, I would not do cold water immersion after you do some type of strength and hypertrophy training. I would wait at least 4 hours. And typically what I'll do is I'll do my cold exposure on my off days. Now, as far as the question is when to do it, like I said, if it's on an off day, you could pretty much do it throughout the day in the morning. I wouldn't do it too close to bed, and because that could keep you up. But obviously using this as a tool for recovery, for mental resilience, also for potentiating and activating brown fat is being studied and continues to be studied. Also, too, what happens when you get into cold exposure is you do what's called a vasoconstrict, and then your blood vessels constrict, and then as you come out of it, you vasodilate, and so the blood flow will actually flow to areas that need it. And you find that now, even if you have a little bit of shivering, Dr. Soberg has studied this sort of shivering effect and how it could help with increased metabolic rate as well. Obviously, you don't want to be shivering for a long time, but a little bit of shivering isn't the worst thing when you come out of these cold exposures, or baths or showers or whatever it is. So definitely a tool to be used. And, like I said to you before, I think that it's something that you want to sort of ease yourself into. If you're talking about going into a bath or something, 40 to 65, 40, I would say 45 to 60 degrees is a good sort of baseline to go for. I typically keep my cold plunge around 47 degrees. So that's all I wanted to touch on today. I'll put a link in the show notes of the Soberg study regarding the brown fat. And again, I appreciate you listening. If you have any questions regarding cold exposure or anything else, feel free to email me, brian@briangrin.com. And I look forward to talking to you on Friday with another great interview. Have a great week. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.